Hi, my name is Nonima Digela. Welcome to my YouTube channel. So today I want us to do episode 4 while we are waiting for them to return from the recess because Monday is the day. It's 3 days to go now. Thank goodness. What a wait. It's been a month of Istukutes, son. Anywho, episode 4, let's look at the confessions, or was it confessions or coercion? What's going on there? The confession that could decide the Senzo Meyiwa trial. We're going to talk about that. One of the most controversial aspects of the Senzo Meyiwa murder trial is the alleged confession statements made by two of the accused, which is Sithemba Sibiya, Muzawukhulelwa Sithemba Sibiya, Bongani Sandiso Ndanzi. Those confessions are one of the most controversial when it comes to the censorship, because there's a lot of things that will make you question too much when it comes to the how process of how they were taken. The prosecution argues there's a statement to support its case. The defense insists they were obtained through torture, assault, intimidation, and coercion. The court has spent months hearing evidence about whether these statements were made voluntarily or whether they should be excluded entirely. We are going to find out at the end of the trial what happens when it comes to the so-called confessions. But one thing that we can all agree on is that currently Judge Ratamu Kgwatleng had decided, I think that was early 2024, he decided to put them provisionally accept them to see what's inside those statements so that he can listen thoroughly instead of saying, no, I don't need them, but he needs to hear what's inside. Voila, what was inside shocked the rest of the country. Okay, the best of us. Now, we ended up having so many questions than answers when it comes to what came when they were read into the record. Now, did the accused confess because they were guilty or because they had no choice? That is the biggest question that we were left with, especially with the contents that are very questionable. Yeah, but this question has become one of the biggest legal battles in the Senzo Meyiwa murder trial. Now, welcome to episode 4, where we unpack the confession evidence, the allegations of torture, and why this issue could influence the outcome of one of South Africa's most watched criminal trials. First of all, what are the alleged confessions? The state relies on confessions that were made by the accused, 1 and 2. Also, the state relies on confession evidence allegedly were taken voluntarily from those accused after their arrest in 2020. According to the prosecution, the confessions were made voluntarily because we have the two confessions from Bongani Ndanzi, which is accused number 2. We have pointing out from accused number 1, and then we also have a so-called confession also from accused number 1. Now, when it comes to all of that, there's a lot of things that you are going to question as we go on. Proper legal procedures, were they followed? In fact, the prosecution is saying that those confessions were made voluntarily. The prosecution is also saying proper legal requirements or procedures were followed, and they corroborate other evidence in the state case. But the defense rejects this completely. Instead, the defense lawyers argue the confessions are unreliable because they were allegedly obtained after the accused had been assaulted and threatened. This disagreement led to one of the longest trial within a trial proceedings in South African legal history. That's the first point of it all. Secondly, why was there a trial within a trial? If you are someone who's new in all of this and you are trying to understand what am I talking about, before a confession can be used in a court of law, the prosecution must prove that the the prosecution must prove that the confession was made freely and voluntarily. The judge cannot simply assume a confession is genuine just because the prosecution is saying it is. Instead, the court conducts a separate hearing known as a trial within a trial. During that hearing, the court examines how the accused were arrested, how they were threatened, whether they had access to lawyers, whether they understood their constitutional rights, and whether any pressure was put in them, whether any pressure was applied also before making those statements. Only after all those considerations, all this evidence, can the court decide whether the confession is admissible or not. Another thing, the third one, the defense allegations. The defense presented serious allegations regarding the treatment of the accused. Among the claims raised in court were allegations that some accused were assaulted, suffocated, threatened, deprived of sleep, forced to sign documents, and intimidated into making statements. Well, when it comes to assault, we saw when it comes to accused number one, even Mboto, who was taking the statement, the so-called statement of accused number one or confession, also agreed that yes, his hands, because of the, what you call, Ozankosi, I forgot the English name of Ozankosi now, because he was locked on Ozankosi like this, it shows that there was wrist issues there. Do you understand? It's written. Also, he agreed in that. And we also saw when it comes to accused number two, the deprivation of sleep. Yeah, it was proven by the, what you call, AVL. Yes, it was shown. Yeah. Now, the defense argued that any statement obtained through coercion should not be admitted as evidence. The accused themselves gave testimony describing how they say they were treated following their arrest. The police officials involved denied all those allegations. The court therefore had to assess conflicting versions of events. Number four, the state's position. The prosecution denied allegations of torture. According to state, constitutional procedures were followed, rights were explained, confession procedures complied with legal requirements, and the statements were made voluntarily. The prosecution argues that the allegations of assault were fabricated to avoid responsibility. They also contend that the confession evidence is supported by other aspects of the investigation. Number five, the legal test. South African law places significant safeguards around confession evidence. A confession is generally admissible only if the court is satisfied it was made freely and voluntarily and without undue influence. The Constitution also protects every accused person's right to remain silent and the right not to be compelled to make a confession. If the court finds the coercion, assault, or improper pressure influenced the confession, it may rule the statement inadmissible. If admitted, the court will then determine what weight, if any, to give it alongside all other evidence. So those are the things that we are going to hear to when the trial ends. After all the arguments and everything, we're going to hear how is Judge Rata going to deal with all of this. Number six, why this issue of this entire situation matters. Confession evidence can be powerful because people often assume individuals would not admit to serious crimes unless they were involved. However, courts recognize that false confessions can occur under certain circumstances, especially where coercion is alleged. For that reason, judges do not automatically accept confession evidence. Instead, they consider the circumstances surrounding the confession, corroborating evidence, inconsistencies, and whether legal safeguards were respected. So when it comes to these so-called confessions of the Senzo Meyiwa case from accused 1 and 2, those are the issues that Judge Ratai will have to assess at the end. And also, as the public, we have our reactions. I'm one of those people who was not happy when the confessions was actually admitted. But when I look back now, I am happy that they were admitted, because right now we see a lot of things that really needed to be heard in that courtroom. Now, the confession hearings generated intense public debate. Some members of the public believed a confession is the strongest evidence. Others responded, if torture occurred, no confession should ever be accepted. Many legal commentators noted that the court's decision on admissibility would be a critical step, but that it would not by itself determine guilty or innocence. Even where a confession is admitted, the prosecution must still prove its case beyond a reasonable doubt based on the totality of the evidence. The allegations also renewed wider discussions about police conduct, constitutional rights, and public confidence in the criminal justice itself. Criminal justice system itself. And it's not helping that we are watching the Madlanga Commission. When you look at the Senzo Meyiwa case and the things that you hear there regarding the police conduct, and then you go and listen to Madlanga Commission and hear about police conduct, then you are like, well, chances are these guys are telling the truth. High chances the guys are telling the truth. Now, the court had that extensive evidence during a trial within a trial. They heard everything that was said. The defense alleged that some confessions were obtained through coercion and assault. Police witnesses denied all those allegations. Court considered testimony from both accused and law enforcement officials before he ruled on admissibility. The issue of confession evidence remains one of the most closely scrutinized aspects of the Senzo Meyiwa murder trial. Now, the part of the case highlights several important legal principles. The prosecution bears the burden of proving a confession was made voluntarily before it can be admitted. You do understand they were provisionally admitted, so they still need to prove that indeed they deserve to be fully admitted. Also, allegations of coercion require careful judicial scrutiny because constitutional rights are at stake. Well, when it comes to this party, we've heard people that came into that courtroom of Judge Rota to talk about how they were treated by Gininda team. We also had General Shabane talking about how Gininda and Baloyi treated him, and he wondered if him as a general of police was treated like that, how much more of ordinary citizens? Do you see? Another issue, even if a confession is admitted into evidence, the court must still evaluate its reliability and weight alongside all other evidence. Up to so far, as someone who watches the case, I still have not found any reasonable circumstance whereby the so-called confessions are linking with the so-called evidence that is in that courtroom. The admissibility ruling affects what evidence the trial may consider, but it is only one component of the overall determination of guilt or innocence. So you see, which is still, even though they were admitted, it's still not saying that they will make a big difference at the end of the day. It's still up to Judge Rata. Now, the battle over these alleged confessions goes beyond all the accused themselves. It raises broader questions about policing, constitutional rights, and the standards the court must apply before relying on confession evidence. Whether you believe the statements were voluntarily or coerced, one thing is certain: this issue has become one of the defining legal battles in the Senzo Meyiwa murder trial. Now, one thing that I can ask you, as someone that watches the case, do you believe confession evidence should ever stand on its own without strong supporting evidence? Let's talk in the comment section. I want to hear your views. Secondly, what safeguards do you think are most important to prevent false confessions? For me, I think we need those personal, like Americans have, police have e-cameras that are on yourself where what you are saying to someone that you are speaking to, all of that changing. cameras that are going to show us what you do on all of that. So we need those cameras for police officials in South Africa. We need them ASAP. That will safeguard everyone who deals with a person that is being arrested. From arresting, from approaching, arresting, everything that happens in between up until the matter goes to court. We need all of that, okay? We will also have no police officials who are on duty and are doing shenanigans out here. We will deal with a lot, okay? Thirdly, should allegations of coercion automatically exclude a confession, or should courts always hear all the surrounding evidence first? Me, I believe that they need to hear all the surrounding evidence. I want to hear from you. What are your thoughts when it comes to that? Comment section, please tell me. Let's have a peaceful argument there. Number 4, what impact do you think this part of the trial has had on public confidence in the justice system? Well, there's a lot of things that we are doubting when it comes to our justice system. We are hoping Judge Rata Mogoatleng is going to see the light and do the right thing when it comes to this case. Last question, which aspect of the confession hearings surprised you the most? Okay, for me, the one thing that surprised me the most was Muzi's so-called confession. The police wanted us to believe Muzi did a confession voluntarily. And on top of that, Muzi, from doing the confession voluntarily, spoke about the wrong names of the people. They came back to say Makimbi and Marco Buteles were the wrong people. But Muzi, we are expected to believe that Muzi and Makimbi and Marco were acquaintances or were best friends working together. How? Why? How are you going to give a voluntary confession and still lie on it? It will never make sense for me. That was my highlight. And then for the police now to come and expect the court to accept all of that situation, that is shocking for me. Let's talk in the comment section. I want to hear from you. What are your thoughts when it comes to all of this? Thank you so much. I'll see you on our next episode. Enjoy your day. Bye-bye.